Alright, welcome to Minecraft Circuits in Real Life. This is the kit that includes all of the parts you need in order to work through a series of projects that basically take you from learning about what electricity is to how to wire objects together, how to light LEDs, how to press buttons. But the idea is that we're making a parallel between Minecraft and what we can do in real life. So in Minecraft, we've got redstone blocks, which represent energy, and in real life we have like batteries that are our sources of energy. One of the differences between Minecraft and our real life circuits is that in Minecraft all of the inputs and outputs generate energy. In real life, all of the inputs and outputs are either connecting something or sending energy out or taking electricity, turning it into light. So we have what would be light, which is the LED torch, and so with that, that's going to be one of our outputs, and then we're going to be able to figure out how the torch works. So one of the things that we do is that we've got essentially a set of batteries and a set of wires. So the idea is that we've got to get the energy from the battery into our torch. So normally in Minecraft you would just do a redstone trail from your battery over to the torch. So in real life we need to use wires. So that's going to be one of the things that we do is hook up those wires. So the kit includes the wires, the kit includes the torches, the LEDs, and it also includes the breadboards. And the breadboards are here in order to hook wires into and sort of route power. And actually a breadboard originally was basically a board that had nails in it and that you wrapped wires around and then you connected, as if you were connecting redstone, your circuits. So in our case we have like these nice little breadboards, and they're sort of like the skeleton ribs. And we're going to go through that too. We're going to explore how the skeleton of the breadboard works, how our wires plug together, how our batteries are going to power the circuits. And as we go through this, I'm just going to dump the whole thing out. And what will happen is we'll actually use multiple LEDs. We're going to use multiple buttons, and so these are basically square style buttons, and you can actually be careful when you take them off because they're very sharp and you can poke yourself like I did. But the square buttons pop right onto the top, so you can just basically have that. Let's see here, push that on, and now you can click the button. And the button is basically going to route the two wires between one another. There's a piece of metal that connects the two loops together. So we're going to talk about how the buttons work, and we're going to talk about how we wire up the buttons, how we get the buttons onto the breadboards. So alright, so I've brought the whole kit out. So it's the power, the kit's out, and I wanted to get the outputs. Our outputs are going to be the LEDs. So that's going to be basically our torches, and we're going to turn the torches off and on. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use our buttons, and these are like pressure plates, these are like buttons, they're temporary, and they work just like they do in Minecraft. They just pop back and forth. And then from there, we're going to basically do what we talked about with wires. We're going to set all the wires up so that these buttons and the power that we have are hooked together so that we create a closed circuit and the lights come on and off. So that's going to be that step. And then we're going to introduce the idea of resistors, and resistors are really important because if you provide the full amount of energy to an LED that our batteries supply, it will actually basically burn up the LED and then you lose it. So we don't want to burn up our LEDs, we want to use them for the rest of our projects from beginning to end. So with that in mind, that's where we got our resistors, and we have a couple different kinds. So that's going to be lighting things up and figuring out the basics of the breadboarding, and then what we're going to use that, and we're going to wire them in series, we're going to wire them in parallel, and that's going to introduce us to some logic. And that's the big goal, is to get up to the speed with logic and start working on how buttons in series and how various objects in series causes like logical operations like AND. So if I press this and this, what happens? So we've got that, and then the next sequence of this is we're going to introduce the transistors. Transistors are basically electronic switches, and so when we supply power to a transistor, we use it to turn on and off another output. So these electric switches are also going to be wired in the same way that we wired things in series and parallel with our buttons, and the transistors will be wired up so that basically we're now introducing the basic fundamental for how computer logic is built. We're going to scale that up. We're going to do ands and ors and maybe not gates and introduce the idea of gates. And then what we're going to do is introduce a very interesting chip, the 7400. So the 7400 chip is basically what they call quad NAND gate. So we're going to actually go all the way up to this package, and so what happens is inside of this package are a set of transistors and other bits of electronic that have been shrunk down. So you can't see inside, but what we end up doing is we end up wiring those up on our breadboard and then powering them appropriately, setting up the LEDs, and now we're actually doing arrays of logic gates. And when we have these arrays of logic gates that we can use, we have enough logic in order to create half adders and full adders. So that's where we're going to get. That's going to be the very last part of the session, and that will be doing the logic with the 7400 series. So we're going to go from the buttons, the LEDs, the wires, to the resistors, to things in series and parallel, digital logic, 7400 chips where we have arrays of logic that we're going to configure various ways, and we're going to explore a couple of other outputs. One of the things that you may notice in the kit too is that we have what's called a dip switch, but basically these are little levers. So we're going to go through how we wire up tiny little levers. So when I press down here, I'm now turning them on. I flip them up, I'm turning them into the off position. So we have like a little mini set of things that we can hook up on our breadboard, and that will become the levers. So we'll have buttons and levers that we're going to do tests with. So we're going to have our inputs, our outputs, and all the things in between. So, alright, this completes the introduction. Thank you.